Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Thunder, and this is Case Closed. Case Closed. The highest level discussion and conversation on the most relevant topics in this space with an all star panel as usual. And yes, we're talking about the social contract. And there have been some recent occurrences, in particular, Brickgate, with Burkisha getting knocked upside the head with a brick, apparently. And she claimed that she didn't do anything, but after further evaluation, it's discovered that she's likely a troublemaker and she was poking the bear. But a lot of content has been done on this topic on the Brickgate controversy, and a lot of blame levied at and towards black men in particular, with the claim that black men did not try to defend or protect. And, I've talked frequently about this vertical order of protection: God over man, man over wife, wife over children. And in that vertical order of protection, everyone is protected. Everyone's protected. God protects the man, and the man protects his wife and is willing to even die for his wife and for the sake of his children. And matter of fact, if you look in the Bible, this is Old Testament, there's even a prescription where if a man is unmarried and his brother dies, and his brother had a wife and children, he is to actually take on his brother's wife. So there are structures in place with the express intent of protecting women and children. Always has been. In fact, a lot of this, the patriarchy, railing against the patriarchy, is it is ironic, because a large part of the purpose of the patriarchy actually is to defend and protect women and children, and actually to protect society. And something else I will mention is that it's only when these conversations about a broken contract, a broken social contract, that it's only when something is dysfunctional that these conversations arise. Because in societies where there is no broken contract, tradition, they just follow tradition. Where there is no dysfunction, this sort of rampant dysfunction we see, especially in the black community, but in particular in Western society, as I believe to be a consequence of monkeying around with gender roles, monkeying around with things that we have done for thousands of years without actually understanding what the consequences would be. We are suffering the consequences. We are suffering the consequences. And as the saying goes, when the rest of the world or the rest of the country gets a cold, the black community gets the flu. The black community gets the flu. So we're going to talk about this topic from a higher altitude. It'll be less about it'll be less about a brick, and it's going to be more about the fundamental underpinnings of society. What do individuals owe to society in the modern Western world? Is it all about rights? What are the responsibilities and duties of the individual in return for her rights? Are there defined roles for men and women in the modern Western world? Should black men be protecting random black women? Are calls for protection simply a postmodern power play intended to shame and guilt useful idiots into falling in line? That and much more today on Case Closed. Let's go.
Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, everybody. Make sure you like the video, like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos. Support Black Male Media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the replay gang, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. If you'd like to buy me a sandwich, go ahead and shoot me a Cash App. Sandwich Gang. If you didn't know it, sandwich is spelled with two M's. Sandwich. And it is that time. What's happening, everybody?
It is. Yeah, what is happening? What is happening? How's it going, LAR? Is it still hot over there? What's the
It's
weather
football
report over
season.
there?
Nobody cares about the Heat.
All right.
Nobody cares about the heat. It's football season. You still got you still a Chicago person, a Texas person now? What team you repping these days?
Oh no. I'm a Chicago person till I die, but I don't rep Chicago teams except for the Bulls and the White Sox. Everybody else can go kick rocks. This is just a hat.
Oh,
Got got it. How's it going, Kaiser? How's your microphone over there? How's the internet?
Yeah, it's all good.
How's all that good stuff?
Just chilling.
I don't know. You sound kind of like you're in a fridge or something.
Well, I sound like I'm in a fridge.
You're in a fridge. You're in the fridge at Walgreens. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, while I share the stream, you guys can go ahead and do the same. Go ahead and share the stream, like the stream, and get ready for the conversation. You see, okay, Dr. Thunder already gave a very good intro in his monologue, right? And guys, I want to start out this way, right? One of the things that Dr. Thunder mentioned was that if you start talking about social contracts, that means you're talking about something that no longer exists. You see, my man Hegel, okay, my man, right, my 18th century philosopher friend Hegel, said something about philosophy that basically the understanding, the philosophical understanding, okay, is always about a way of life that has gone by. That when you start talking about philosophy, like, oh, this is in this case, you're talking about a social contract. If you're describing a social contract, it's a social contract of a bygone era because typically when things are working, they're not conscious because human beings are not rational, which makes sense, right? It's not like you have all these rational, quote unquote, rational agents out there thinking about the contract and making negotiations and such and such. So I want to start with you, Kaizo, just on this general philosophical point. Do you think our man Hegel is correct there that basically if you're talking about a philosophical understanding, a philosophical reflection, it is of a way of life that has gone by. So if you're talking about whom is supposed to be protecting and providing, then the protection and provision regime is not the regime we're living under. Go ahead and comment about that, if you will, Kaizo.
Sorry,
Is
can
it
you
delayed
repeat
that
that one
bad?
last point?
Okay, am I breaking up? How's my
no,
audio? What's
you're
going
good.
on?
You're good.
'Cause
Kaizo is just is delayed
is-
for some reason, and you also sound like you're like underwater or something. I don't know if you're
oh man.
no,
Uh,
Ike, you sound fine. Ike, sound fine. Kaizo,
okay,
your
cool.
mic just sounds like it's a little bit underwater or something. So I don't know what you can do to fix that.
Yeah, fix it because I think Kaizo is doing a tag team. He's got a stream going on. He's got like 3 streams going on at the same time, trying to sneak into here too with Ecamm on a lesser device. Okay,
Yeah, I
but
think it should be working now. Can you hear me?
yes,
I
I
can
can
hear
hear you.
you, but
Okay,
it
I'll
just
go
sounds
ahead.
like it just sounds a lot like the room. But go ahead if you can get closer to the mic.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. That should be better. And I will go ahead and repeat the question, right? The last part of what I said. You see, there's a notion that basically philosophical understanding comes after the way of life is passing. Like if you're having philosophical understandings about a particular way of life, it's a way of life that is just about ending. It's about over, right? And this was something that was popularized by Hegel. Rational thing. It is in them. It is mimetic. People just copy each other. They do things based on traditions. Traditions are kind of loosely passed around through stories and again mimetic, just copying, right? Like you wear pants not because of some kind of a rational understanding. You wear pants because pants is what you do. Pants is what you wear. And when it becomes some kind of, anyways, the point is this: is it the case that when we're talking about social contract, that whatever social contract we're discussing is a social contract of a bygone era? What do you have to say about that philosophical understanding in general, Kaizo?
Yeah. So okay, I think okay. I wouldn't say it's a bygone era or something of the past. I just think it's evolved on how it kind of it rears its ugly head on society. I think ultimately, now let me just explain what it is first, because I think that would be a good point for us to start. If you look at the olden days, right, men obviously in general, in most societies had more leverage when it came to decision making, voting, etc. in most societies. And obviously, women, by virtue, had the protection of the men, literal protection. You look at the Maasai community, for example, in Kenya. Hey, the men sleep outside, women sleep inside the house, right? The women are protected. But when all the elders, well, they're men, right? And not just men, they're the men who actually were part of the Moran, the warrior culture. So they had to go through the stages of leadership to the point whereby now they've amassed that ability to now obviously tell the younger men and the women of the rules and orders in society. So I guess some societies had it very more or less, you know, solidified, and some cultures had it in a more abstract manner. I think what's obviously happened now is we've renegotiated the social contract, and now obviously daddy government is in charge. So of course, but socially, obviously, people still like the idea of a protection and value addition through listening, etc. So I think ultimately it's evolved to a point whereby the government is now the taking the position of the man, and obviously, but due to the woman's reptilian brain, she still wants to feel protected.
Okay. Is it just the woman's reptilian brain, or is it also the reptilian brain of men whom get triggered by the fact
Both,
that a woman
both,
is,
both.
you know, yeah, good, because these reptiles or the reptilian brain is, equally present, right? And people have to understand. Well, no, people are not going to understand anything. Let's just continue the conversation, okay? So, Dr. Thunder, I'm going to hit you with the basic question. As a matter of fact, let's start with LAR, right? Do you owe protection to random women? Has it ever even been the case? I don't know. Let's say maybe your grandma. Was it the case in your grandma's time that men just protect women, other than the basic kind of chivalry? Don't be a douchebag. You're supposed to protect people, especially people whom don't seem to be able to protect themselves, so women and children. But what's this obligation thing where it seems, and shout out to black men, because it seems in this particular way, I kind of commiserate a lot, or I can kind of sympathize, or whatever the word is. There's this kind of like black men don't protect us stuff, and it just sounds crazy to me. Like it's like men sound crazy saying it, and it's insane. So, LAR, do you owe protection to random black women out there?
Old protection? No. I think it's a duty for the strong to help the weak. But that's a different thing as far as, you protect people who need protection. You don't protect people who create strife. So, you know, somebody would protect a child from being kidnapped, right? But somebody wouldn't protect a child for throwing rocks at a car. Like, don't hit that little kid. Is a difference. So the, the the to me the problem with that is the people who ask who think they deserve protection are the people who are causing the most ruckus. So it's the wrong group of folks asking. It's not like a elderly lady walking around and somebody's robbing her, or just a young woman walking around and somebody's robbing her. It's somebody who's out here with a sign saying, you know, I hate the world and I'm gonna do something to you, that want protection, and it doesn't make sense. But as far as no, because if you, if it goes left, um, no, the person that's being protected is going to say they don't owe that man's family. If he goes to jail, they don't owe him anything. If he gets killed, they don't owe him anything. So I don't think, I don't think so.
Well put there. And maybe a quick follow-up question before we go to Dr. Thunder. Do you think that the people asking for protection, we can look at this particular case with a brick gate, with a brick to the face. Somebody said, she didn't hit the wall hit her. That was a good one. I think that was one of the best little things to come out of this whole thing that I heard. But do you actually think that these people want protection, or is it just another way to throw a slingshot at black men again? Like, oh, yeah, these guys are dusty. Look at them now again. Look what they're not doing. Meanwhile, these people are perhaps already have given up on black men a long time ago. Or, if you check their previous tweet, they were like, divest to hell with black men. And then they were like, oh, black men are protecting me. What percentages of the mix do you think is going on here?
I think the majority of the percentage of people who are playing a half truth and a semantic game, they want protection from consequences. They're just saying they want protection. So, two people could say the same exact thing but have two different, intentions behind it, and that's what the majority of people like that young lady do. Yes, women deserve protection and women should be protected, but they're not saying protected from what? Protect me from myself, protect me from my consequences, which a normal person would go, no. So that's the issue.
Mm-hmm. Shout out, ladies and gentlemen. As you come in, go ahead and click that like button and share the stream. Shout out to you guys in the chat. I see check-in for you in there. Okay, Dr. Thunder, what's your answer to that question? Do you owe protection? LAR said.
Yeah,
what silly joke are you trying to make? Go ahead, Dr. Thunder.
Yeah, the do you owe protection thing is an interesting question. So biblically, what does it say? The Bible says, "Owe no one anything but love," right? And I think that that's appropriate here. You have not earned something, so it's not owed to you. It is grace. It's by grace. And it's by unmerited favor, right? And maybe even by mercy that someone would desire or decide to protect you, let alone a random person. So what incentive do I have to put myself in harm's way? And we've seen hundreds of these situations where Captain Save-'em comes in and ends up getting ended themselves, or some catastrophic injury, or he jumps in to defend and then the woman jumps on him and says, "Don't hit my boyfriend," and is choking him and everything else. So we see these situations happen all the time. I don't believe it is my responsibility or that I owe my labor to anyone else. You must pay for my labor. I'm not your slave. Okay? You must pay for my labor. Now, how do you pay for my labor? One way that you can pay for my labor is you can enter in an agreement with me, a covenant agreement that says that I give you certain things and that you give me certain things. And under that agreement would be the responsibility for me to sacrifice myself for you. That's called marriage. Okay? That's called marriage. And so I will do that for my wife. I will do that for my children. That's whom I'm responsible for. Something that people are not saying, or they haven't said as much, or something that the naysayers are not mentioning, is that my black wife would very much prefer me to come home. And so if I was to call and say, "Hey, black wife, would you like me to F around and put myself in possible danger, attempting to put a cape on for some random person that I do not know? Or would you rather that I come home tonight so that I can continue protecting you and our family, so that I can continue to provide for our family, so that I can continue to, if need be willing to die for my family? Okay, that's called marriage. But unfortunately, in our community, and there's a lot of doublespeak with this whole issue, this whole Brickgate business. One of the things in the black community is that our women are both the most divorced and the most unmarried. Most divorced and also the most unmarried. So they haven't been married, plus the ones that do get divorced, the ones that do get married have the highest incidence of getting divorced. Marriage is the very definition of protection. That is the vertical order of protection. That is putting yourself in submission to something that can protect you. Nobody can protect you if you won't do what they say. Nobody can protect you if you're unruly. Nobody can protect you if you have eliminated yourself, removed yourself from a place to be protected. It's not possible. So how is it that you're also clamoring about being the most unprotected? You could comply. You could comply and you would be protected. When you don't comply, when you are so-called strong, independent, and don't need no man, then equal rights, equal lefts. And so, yeah, no, you're not, I don't owe you my protection. I will give you my protection under the condition that we are in an agreement for me to do that. And like I said, that's called marriage. I'm not doing this for random people. I will get on the phone and call the police. I will go over to someone else and I will say, hey, this person over here is in trouble, a security person, a police officer or something like that. I will do that. And I will do that expeditiously. If I see that this is a dire situation, I will run and do that. I will do that quickly. I'm not going to just sit around and be like, well, she's getting knocked upside the head. Too bad. I'm all right. That's not what I'm going to do. And of course, that's the caricature. That's what they're saying. They say, hey, black men are just sitting around. They doing nothing. And none of these guys was even going to call the police. Turns out that actually a few of these brothers that supposedly, don't protect black women actually stuck around with her until help came.
The cops were
right. Yeah. Right, until the paramedics showed up. But anyhow, that's a long answer to the question. But no, I don't owe you my protection. You're not owed protection from me. And the people that I owe protection to, I'm in a commitment with. I have a responsibility to, and there's no way that I am going to put myself in danger and then therefore less apt and capable of being able to take care of my own family for some random person, let alone someone that has shown that they're a troublemaker.
Shout out. I see a super chat, Dr. Thunder. I see a super chat indeed. If you don't mind reading that.
Yes. Let's see here. Objection. No one is taking into account how good the assailant's brick throwing game was. It's possible he couldn't be stopped. Boulder assassin.
Yes, indeed. The opposition has a vote. Yes, it is possible that he could not be stopped. Shout out to Don McKee, I believe. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Always
yes,
very
Don McKee.
supportive.
Don McKee, thank you.
All right, all right, all right. So Kaizo, okay. First of all, just answer real quick this question about the owing of protection, and then we'll get back into the idea of some of the things that have kind of been thrown around. There's individualism versus collectivism. There's the notion of diffusion of responsibility. You see, in rural areas, okay, where people are not as dense, maybe things are not as industrialized, there tends to be more of a collectivist type of there tends to be what is less of diffusion of responsibility, where the state in more dense urban areas is supposed to be responsible for things. Okay, we kind of outsource that responsibility. We become more atomized, more individualistic. That's why cities tend to be more liberal and individualistic in that sense. All of that is playing in here with regards to what the definition of modernity is. But let's take a step back. The simple question: do men owe protection to a random woman, or is it the case that it has to be something where you're incentivized to do so? You're in a particular contract, you're in marriage, for example. What are your thoughts, Kaizo?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, originally I think my mic works fine now. As I mentioned earlier, I think originally there was an actual contract in certain societies, like I mentioned, the Maasai community. I think in modern times, no, we don't owe them protection, and the reason why is because the state has taken on that position. Literally, the state creates the National Guard, creates the police, and everything. So these are the people who are supposed to do the job of protecting households that are outside of your own vicinity.
Sorry, did you want to say something, Dr. Thunder?
Oh no, you got it.
Okay. Got it, got it, got it, got it, got it. Okay. So, Kaizo, let's dig into this individualism versus collectivism. Maybe let me not put that frame on it. Basically, I'm going to say we all live in societies. We are social creatures. Whether you live in a rural area where things are a little bit more, uh, maybe a little bit more communal, right? Or you live in a city where the kind of a outsourcing from the individual. Each individual is not necessarily responsible. There's some kind of a agency, some government agency, some organization that's supposed to be responsible for taking care of us. Either way, you're in a society. Either way, there's some notion that the individual owes something to the collective. There is a notion out there, and I want to see if you agree with this or not, that in modern society, take United States for example, there is a hyper focus on rights, and that it is universal that for any American to be like, I know my rights. Like it's almost like it's that's the American thing, rights, rights, rights. But there is no real notion of, let's say, responsibility, or what are these rights? Where do they come from? Who's supposed to enforce them? Uh, Duties. Do we actually need these duties and these responsibilities, or is it just something that Jordan Peterson is just complaining about? That, hey, people need to, yeah, responsibilities on the other side of rights, or hey, we should just remain individualistic, talk about rights, and the society can still function. What are your thoughts regarding what the individual owes the group in modern times? What are your thoughts, Kaizo?
Yeah, great question there. And I'll start with the last point that you made, which is, or the one I remember. Do we actually need these responsibilities, or are they just part of the story? And are they real, right? Are they necessary for a functioning of society? Yes, I believe so. Here's the thing, right? Women don't like washing dishes. They don't like to do the housework, right? They want to do the more fun thing. But then when they do the fun thing, they don't want the responsibility of what comes with the fun thing, which is work, right? They see work as fun. They believe, and I'm using an actual real example here, right? In African culture, they will say, hey, look, my brother's got to play outside, right? And I had to stay in the kitchen and do X. So women in general don't like to do work. They like to have fun. Girls, anyways. And the difference is they project that so-called fun onto the men. Now, here's the issue about responsibility. If this isn't inscribed in culture, the responsibility aspect, nothing is going to be functional. That's what leads to this whole area that we're in right now, where one gender feels like, okay, well, the other isn't doing their part of the contract, right? This contract that they grew up believing still existed. So ultimately, yes, people need some kind of story narrative to make them sort of do these things. Because this boy that grew up apparently having fun, his responsibility in African culture is to pay the bills, all the bills, right? Pay the kids' school fees, etc. And the thing is, right, the non-dusty ones do it. So I think yes, responsibility is needed. Cultural stories are needed to prevent reanalyzing everything at the home level.
It, and hopefully you can still hear me there. So LAR, okay, it's about the individual and what he owes. There's a idea of duty and responsibility. It sounds actually quaint, right? When one says it now, it sounds like kind of old timey. It sounds like, what the hell are you really talking about? What the hell does it really mean? I just stay out of trouble. That's my responsibility, right? I follow the law. I try to pay my taxes, right? I try not to cheat too much on it. And what else am I supposed to owe you, right? As a group, let's say. Kaizo was saying that you know what, people are not going to do the things that are necessary to keep society functioning without this notion of them owing something. So it is needed, right? But LAR, does the individual need to focus more on what their responsibilities are to the nation? Take for example, okay, people complain about growth, let's say, right? Oh, we're not growing as much, things are bad, or the economy is not so good, or some kind of a thing like that. Well, what's the idea? Well, maybe we all need to sacrifice. Well, maybe things are not supposed to be. Maybe the gravy train can't flow forever. This is a side issue as an example, right? But it's just like an example that people rarely ever talk about the way it used to be said before. I think the last person that said this thing was Jimmy Carter. Okay, Jimmy Carter talked about, hey, maybe we need to tighten, we need to tighten, maybe you know what I'm talking about, right? But Jimmy Carter back then said, hey, maybe we need to bring down our consumption. Maybe we need to collectively sacrifice, and he got slaughtered for it. And people no longer say that crap anymore. It's just like, hey, it's always great, infinite growth, blah blah blah. Let me bring it back to the basic question. LAR, the individual, what does he owe to the group, or how do you see that whole notion of duties and responsibilities to the group?
In an ideal world, he would owe service. This is not an ideal world. What you have is people who what society has become is a bunch of people who are users who want somebody else to be responsible for the group so they can benefit when they're not going to be responsible to the group. So it's changed. Like, yeah, you can be responsible to the group, but you know, just like you said, it's a social contract, quid pro quo. What are you going to do to repay that service to the group? And in the society we live in, the answer is nothing. So it's wanting something for nothing. And unfortunately, there's no nice way to say this, but nobody wants to help selfish, unproductive people.
Yep.
So you wind up wasting your life and your time helping out. And I can't even say helping out the whole group. The problem is the people who bring the most detriment to the group are the loudest voices about needing help. And they have a bigger support system than the people who don't bring problems to the group. So if it's not the person, you can ignore those people, but can you ignore their family and their friends and your family and friends connected to them asking for them to be helped all the time? And you're going to have to, because those family and friends won't help you when it goes left either. But that's my point.
So as the society continues to degrade towards more uselessness, then even those people whom are socially minded, socially conscious, whom want to give their part are less likely to, because they're like, why am I going to do this? If I'm understanding you correctly, LR, like nobody wants to help in the selfish and useless people. So it just goes down in a spiral exponentially. Dr. Thunder, how do you view responsibility? How do you consider this? Do you consider this in your individual life? Is there something, some way, somehow to give in to the collective. Like maybe, I don't know, that there was this person that gave a notion of going to church as a collective service, because individually they don't really get anything from it and they don't think it's necessary, but it's a service that they do because you got to keep some kind of a community thing going. That just came to mind right now. But what are your thoughts, Dr. Thunder, about what the individual in these modern times owes to the larger collective?
So I think part of the issue is that the sort of users of the system that LAR was mentioning, that they themselves are not doing anything to serve the system, but they're willing to extract from the system. They want you to give to them, but they're not going to do anything for you or for the system. I mean, and often it's the case that, you have a lot of people that are willing to do things for other people and that are willing to do things for the collective. But this idea that someone is owed your labor is the problem, right? No individual is owed my labor. Again, that's called slavery. I have to, out of my own free will, out of my own desire to do something for other people, be willing to do that. Okay? And yes, that puts folks at the it makes you vulnerable to someone else and to their will and their willingness to help you or not. That's true. But yes, we are connected. And in that way, we are connected. So this is why it's not a good idea to berate, to cast aspersions, call folks that you actually want something from anything but a child of God. It's why that's not a good idea, because you need those folks to, out of their own desire, their own willingness, out of their own free will, to decide to do something for the collective, and perhaps which could be you in a particular crisis situation. And so what it is that and I do think that the religious context for that is different than society, right? So in my religious context, that's different. I will serve my church out of my own desire to serve my church. Of course, I know the people in the church. I know something about the congregants. I have a reason for believing in the particular church and the ministry and I'm Orthodox, and I did research to even become Orthodox. I didn't grow up Orthodox. So I sought that out. So that's something that I wanted to do, and is something that I wanted to serve because I thought it was worthy of serving. We don't have, in large part, there isn't the same level of opportunity to serve things that are worthy anymore. It's not really, the question is not, what am I getting out of it? That's not the question that someone that is serving others is really asking. The question is more like, what good is it anyway? If I do this, how is that actually going to end up benefiting other people? It's kind of like finding out that when you give charity, in a crisis, that only like 10% of the money actually gets to the people. It's like, well, man, it's like I'm giving all this money. 90% of it is getting eaten up by this machine, and it's just a bunch of people getting rich off of it. So what is the point in me digging in my wallet to give to this organization when only 10% of the money gets to, see, that's the problem. That is the problem. And people will try to act like this is like a selfish thing. The reason that the stuff has devolved the way that it has is because there is not the belief that doing these things is worth it. There's too many signs of rampant corruption, of individuals gaming the system, of folks claiming that they're innocent, but then you find out that they got all kind of skeletons in their closet. There's too many examples like this, and I think anybody with sense would, with wisdom, conduct themselves. They would say, hey, what are the better ways that I can contribute where collectively people are actually getting something from this that's positive? And I think that's really that's really the primary issue. I mean, at least from a person, because I'm a generous person. By nature, I am generous. Okay, I'm generous with information. I'm generous with people. I'll talk to you for a long time, and I'll give you all kinds of information. And I am not stingy with sharing information or with being willing to do stuff. That's just how I am. Now, you might have to ask me to do it. I might not know what it is that you need in particular. I'm not running around like, hey, I just randomly want to do stuff for people. That's not the thing, because I have things I need to get done, and I have people that I need to, that I'm specifically responsible for. But, I'm a generous person, but I've been in lots of situations, and I continue to be in these situations where, people take advantage of that. And it's not because I end up being the person that is paying for it that bothers me. It's that you're doing this thing for someone, and you're thinking that this is actually going to help them in a time of need and get them to the next stage of their development. And then you find out over and over that all this did was contributed to their arrested development. Now they're basically going to be worse off because you did something for them. And not only that, but society is going to be worse off. And one last thing, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's a problem with our society. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So what that means is complainers, whiners, people that game the system, people that ain't ish, basically, they're able to do that. They're able to game the system and get the system to cater to them. And then folks that are quiet, they're in the mentality of serving others, of helping other people, and they don't want much. They just want basic respect. They can't even get basic respect. They can't even get basic respect. I just wanted to acknowledge a couple super chats, both by Gregory Scotland. Thank you very much. Saying, salute to the great panel. Has there been any evidence of backup the so-called Brick Maiden story? No. And then one more saying, many modern women in the United States appear to want 90% of commitment from any random man, yet only appreciate maybe 10% of their value. Yeah, that's totally that's the sense of it.
Shout out to you, Mr. Gregory, for the $10 combined. Okay, so if we move on here, Kaizo, with this notion of the individual and what he owes to the group, I think that some of the things that could be abstracted from what has been said so far, especially what Dr. Thunder just said, is that the group, right, needs to formulate these individuals' responsibilities in a manner that satisfies the individual's base needs. So if a man requires respect and honor, Valhalla, immortality, whatever it is, you have to formulate his responsibilities along those lines. You have to be like, hey, yes, you got to go to war, or you got to protect this, or you got to do that, and in return, I'll give you the respect, I'll give you the
Sure.
honor, I'll give you and so on and so forth. But here's the so that keep that as a general kind of playground that we're playing in. And then in modern times, are there in de facto responsibilities put on individuals and maybe even men, right? But without any kind of reward? Or is it the case that we've completely flattened things out? It's completely egalitarian. There is no roles for any particular person. Or are we in the uncanny valley in the middle still, where some people are still expecting something, or expecting a responsibility, a duty, but there's no kind of respect. There is no honor. There is no Valhalla. There is nothing. What are your ideas about this, Kaizo?
Yeah, so I want to start by saying that these romanticized views are why, let's say, feminists exist, right? From the Christian side or anyone else's side. These were rules obviously created by men to put down women, etc., and that's what they'll say. There's some truth to it. I'll say what I mean. It's always been about leverage and power, right? The reason why I became a passport bro, came to Kenya and found myself, a beautiful person that will submit 100% to me is because she knows I'm the one who pays all the bills. That's the reality. If I don't pay the bills, she doesn't have the comfort that she's seeking. So ultimately, if you're in America and you're not a 1%, 5% man, you will be begging for scraps for submission and respect, regardless, right? Unless you get lucky and you find a unicorn. So if that's the case, I simply say this, right? Right now, the government
So
has taken your job.
I like what you said there. I just wanna repeat and say something mainly just for emphasis here, and then you can continue. So this idea you brought in the economic aspect, right? You say, hey, go to a place where you have the leverage, right? And use that leverage to to negotiate, if you will, and you will get what you're seeking. I heard and this is not a new or crazy notion, right? But this week I also was listening to a stream where this was kind of explicitly stated, and somebody said, hey, you know what? If you're not making 150 in certain places, or if you're not making, like, let's say 65K in like the Mississippi Delta or something like that, then this thing that you're looking for in modern day America, right? This submission or whatever, you're not going to find it. And the thing is, because of certain notions that people have, they might bulk against that and say, hey, but that's wrong. Or it's like, it just is what it is. It's not right. It's not wrong. This
Yeah,
is the
and also
modern era.
the other part is
Right? Go
the
ahead.
other part never it was never based on some kind of unifying equal exchange of value in a how do I say this, right? In a I provide this, you provide that, in an equal exchange in multiple different variables, right? I know I'm just confusing people why I said. I guess I'll simplify it, right? It was never a situation of, oh, the man and woman came together to create a unifying society of love and dreams. No, it was, hey, I will protect you physically from this harsh environment. I'm a Maasai warrior that's trained from 13 years old to fight lions, literally. That's the initiation mechanism. And you know that there's lions around here and I'll protect you. And then she says, okay, I'll take your protection. I'll take the food that you bring. I'll cook it and I'll raise your kids. It was a very there was a lot of asymmetry in the areas of value that each part brought in. But now, when you've equalized the values that each gender brings in, there's no longer that asymmetry that could make one or the other, let's say, stick to their preferences. The only thing that even makes men stick to theirs, or rather, let's say, want to still stay in the plantation, is because we as men are hardwired to want to provide value. the issue now is with kind of, because of the programming, we still think it should be on the family and all that stuff. So I say, yeah, it's never been equal. It's always been asymmetrical value exchange. Now that it's equal exchange is what's added.
Are there any? So besides the fact that there's a hardwiring that makes men still want to provide value and makes men perhaps still think that this value that they may be providing should be reciprocated or appreciated,
Yeah,
are
and also
there
women
in
also want
modern times?
just to Tyrone and Pookie and Ray Ray in different ways, right? Everyone still wants to submit or provide value, just not to the people who are present in the contract right now.
Yes. Okay. So if we were to look at just roles, gender roles, if you will, to the degree to which they exist, now we're doing an experiment in the West, in modern, in Western industrialized, educated, societies, democratic, liberal, that we know that conflict, the Germany, United States, that Japan, these places. We're doing an experiment. It's a very new, very recent experiment, and it's also a very radical experiment. This experiment has an egalitarian impulse with regards to roles, right? And I'm asking, are there still roles? Are men still expected to do certain things, but there are no, shall we say, rewards for it, de facto, or I don't know. I'm asking. It's actually a question. Go ahead.
Yeah,
And that was
I
Kaizo.
think. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, I think you can. It's just delayed. Yeah, so I think ultimately right now what's going on is people are still look, our generation, and when I say generation, I'm meaning 50 years, so I'm redefining words. In the last 50 years, we've all grown up with our parents telling us how to best treat each other, and the opposite gender and friends and all that kind of stuff. And I think largely it's just wrong data for the countries that we found ourselves in. So I think that there is that element of, let's say, like a redundant programming that was left on us to where to redirect our energy at best, right? Men are getting into crazy relationships in modern times. They're also getting emotionally played because, let's say women in this case, right? Women understand that men value logic. And women will use logic tactfully to get what she wants, but she won't stick to the, let's say, strategic element. She won't be sticking to logic herself. So I think ultimately what's happening is hey, these people know our weaknesses, and when I say people, I mean the society itself. They know that we value logic. That's our weakness, and they will use it against us in these new social contracts that we still, again, abide by for the most part. Because if let's be honest, right? If most of us here see a woman being abused in a way that we've analyzed to be wrong, most of us would act in some way, whether it's acting in physically involving ourselves in that situation or otherwise. We would act, right? We are reactive towards the emotional pain.
Shout out to Gregory again, I believe, right? Dr. Thunder, this is a third super chat.
Gregory. And Gregory says, sorry, money is not enough anymore to get submission. You are dealing with too many hyenas and women on demon time.
Kaizo, maybe you want to respond. I just see this as a simple necessary versus sufficient kind of thing. Yeah. Not sufficient, but I would argue necessary.
Yeah, money is not, well, yeah. One variable isn't enough to gain something that you want, but money definitely goes a long way in giving you enough power to realize that money makes you have an abundance mentality, meaning you would prevent these behaviors that you don't like from happening before things get too far to begin with. So money will actually help you have more selective privilege to begin with. Otherwise, it's just like, hey, if I know I can always get a new job whenever I want, then I'm not going to simp towards conditions that I think is beneath my my value. So yeah, that's what money does.
Indeed. And shout out again to Gregory. You guys keep on flowing with that super chat. The super chat will get special considerations regarding your comments, and we will spend time, make sure that the issues you bring up are adequately addressed. Adult supervision You're a high level guy. I see you saying high level things all over the place. I don't think I've seen a super chat from you ever, though. That's strange. That's very strange. Now,
Uh,
LAR. LAR. And if indeed I've forgotten that you gave a super chat once, I do apologize. But I'm just an observation there. LAR. Question here with regards to rights and responsibilities and roles, gender roles in this case. And I'm asking you, do you get the feeling or the sense that there's still roles that men are given de facto, but at the same time, everything's supposed to be equal and so on and so forth? I mean, the fact that people are asking for protection is an example of the fact that there's still some kind of a role, but you're going to be equal. But what does it mean to be equal when there's no role and all these other kinds of things? And it also brings up the point, this is a sidetrack now, that Kaizo mentioned about tactical logic, right? Tactical logic is goalpost shifting, right? You have logic within a particular game. Here's the goalpost. And when it doesn't work, you shift the goalpost, you create another game, and you start operating within a different logic. And one thing for men to do is to kind of understand how to become irrational. It's very difficult when somebody is doing that thing to you. Like, in other words, just blow up the whole game. In other words, oh, you wanna hold me to different rules at different times because you know that logically I'm gonna. So you need to be able to spot that. And I think that most men these days, at least within this spaces, understand that goalpost shifting, tactical logic thing. Now, let me go back to my question and restate it, LAR. Are there de facto roles still put upon men, but without the rewards in modern day society? Are men out there feeling that they still have to uh, do something, provide some kind of value? It's expected of them. Well, what are your thoughts about this, LAR?
Yeah, I think there's still roles, and I think they added to them. I think what wound up happening is men and women have gender roles that we were taught when we were from kids, we're socialized to have. And over time, men have been asked to do extra to help the women because the women were trying to do their thing per se. So they've lessened their gender role for, let's just say, the workforce and the ability to work. And while simultaneously asking men to increase their workload with not only the workforce, but the home front and all of the things that go with that. So yeah, the role still exists because at the end of the day, you see guys getting hit on both sides. If you don't fulfill your gender roles as a man, you're less of a man. If you don't fulfill your gender roles as a man and help out, you're less of a man. And guys, you understand if you're not productive, you're going to be viewed as less of a man, and you might see yourself as less of a man. So absolutely.
Hmm. Very well stated there, Dr. Thunder. Now, you've heard everything that's been said, Dr. Thunder. And I think the shorthand is, and I'm paraphrasing now, that basically gender roles have shifted for women, but not for men, right? There's a general shorthand there that is kind of understood in this space that, that's kind of how it is. The reasons why, complicated. Part of it is that men actually do want some role and some to bring some value because that's just kind of how I think most men are. Like, they want some mission, something. Well, what am I doing here? What are the standards? What are the metrics? How am I going to be measured here? What's going on here? What are the rules of the game, right? So, with regards to the question about the roles that are still de facto on men, and any other comments that you want to add vis-a-vis all the other comments that have been made, what are your thoughts? Is society still putting roles on men? Are men still accepting these roles, but there is no remuneration, if you will?
Yeah, the general issue, and this has been said in this space over and over, is that women are modern, but men are still traditional. And men have not figured out how to sort of to orient themselves to the new rules. And part of the reason is because men need purpose and meaning. Those are very critical things for us. And even in this conversation, or how it started out about, are your services owed to someone else? Men are willing to do that if there's a purpose associated with that they can align with. As soon as there's not a purpose that they can align with, something that they feel good about, then that's when they're going to say, well, this doesn't seem to be worth what it is, the stated, the objective. It doesn't seem like it's going to work, like it's means anything. So, men are traditional. Women have changed, as it were, and their tendencies for what it is that they desire, and even what they even say that they want in a man, that has also changed. And it's one of the reasons why you end up with so much I think so many people are unsatisfied with the new normal, totally unsatisfied by it, and there's not really a solution. This look, I blame girl power for all of this. Girl power. You know what we talking about, girl power. And it's not the female empowerment component of it. I'm a fan of female empowerment. I think that that's great. But really what it is that we're seeing, and we have seen, is that equality was never the goal. Supremacy has always been the goal. We want to be able to take over this structure, this patriarchal structure that you created. We'll rail against it and act like we hate it, though we have been the primary beneficiaries of it. It's why there's safety, and technology is developed, and running water, and all the creature comforts, and all of the extra stuff that women spend money on. Right? It's the reason why that all of that stuff exists. But we'll act like, this has been some sort of tremendous persecution to us, more than it has been to men, by the way. That's what they claim, which I would argue is not true. I'd say that a very small percentage of men have benefited and have done well, but the the major portion have been absolutely, decimated, destroyed by quote unquote patriarchy. But I'd say that it's also been a means by which to protect women and children. That's basically what the structure is for. So you can claim that all you wanted was equality, but I don't believe you. When I look at, the enrollments in colleges and universities, when I look at the obvious, not just obvious, but documented feminization of the education system, and when you look at the constant double talk and clamoring about this supposed gender gap, when the gap was only because of the choices that individuals were making about how they wanted to work, where they wanted to work, to the point now where now women actually do make more for the same job. You go to major cities, now they make more for the same job. And many of the things that men wouldn't have been able to be paid for, maternity leaves and extended leave and all this kind of stuff, they get that rolled in, plus they're still making more. Right? But I thought that the goal was equality. They're still complaining, and they're still acting as though this thing hasn't been level set. They're still making the same claims. They're still saying they're not being protected. They're still saying all of this stuff, but I thought you wanted equality. I thought you wanted to be equal footing with men have the same jobs, the same responsibilities. That's what comes with rights, the same responsibilities. But they don't actually want the responsibilities. They want us to take care of the responsibilities and to be still willing to die and to sacrifice ourselves and everything else. But they want the prestigious positions, the positions of power. There's no clamoring for parity and ditch diggers, and no parity and lumberjacks or skyscraper window cleaners or the guys that scale the telephone poles to make sure the transformers are working properly, or plumbers, or construction workers, or infantry in the military. There's no clamoring for parity in any of those. There's only clamoring when we're talking about CEOs, university presidents, professors, when we talk about, congressmen, there's only clamoring for those. And then when they do get in power, it's not as though they actually deconstruct the patriarchy. No, they just take it over. I did a show earlier this week, and it was about the whole, who's actually doing the bullying in these workplaces. Who's bullying women? Is it men that are bullying women, or is it other women? And we discovered that, and we discovered that the research shows that it's somewhere between 80 and 86% of all of these bullying situations in the workplace are women bullying each other. And it's just like, dude.
But it's a man's fault because, they've been made to grind through a male system where now it's a man's fault.
Right, exactly. So it's very obvious that this is worked exactly the way that they wanted it to work. And there still are enough simps out there to continue to be the meat for the machine.
Yeah, but
they're willing to. Go ahead.
Can I ask you? Because I think there's a goalpost shifting that's happened even in men's mindsets, right? Because this is just my own little whatever. But I think, look, from the beginning, it was always wrong for us to give our bodies to fight for our nations, right? Like, I get the strategic point, right? Because women can, one man can, get many children, but one woman can only get one or two kids at max or something like that each time. So they were always more preferred in terms of not dying because obviously they're needed for procreation. However,
Right.
I've always found that the whole idea of women and children first perplexing to begin with, right? And the previous man would have been like, well, this is my duty. I've never felt that was my duty, right? From any timeline. Now, if it was my kids and my wife, I'll do the math and figure out if they're worth it. But I think in general, men have always been simps. That's the problem.
Well, yes, and no. I would say, okay, depending on how you define simp. So, because I think that sacrificing your life, being willing to give yourself to a particular purpose, is not categorically simping. I think it's simping if what it is that you're doing is not worth it. It's not worthy. Like, whoever is the beneficiary is not worthy of that. They've told, for instance, they've told you that they don't want you, but you still keep doing a bunch of stuff. That's obviously simping. All right. However, in the past, I would argue that having that general disposition, willing to give themselves for a higher purpose, as it were, or for the sake of others, it wasn't simping, because what it was that was gained in the we can even use like black men being willing to be stepdaddies. We can use that as an example. Now, it was never ideal. It's never ideal. However, it was in the past something that you were respected and honored and celebrated for. Now it's just you're expected to do it. And then when you have the audacity to say, you know what, I'm still a young man, I'm still in my 20s, I don't think I want to marry a single mother. You actually get criticized and vilified for saying that, which that's totally ridiculous. It's because they actually think that you owe this to them because the men in the past were willing to give that. But what were they getting in return? They got something of value in return. Now they have taken all of the things that would have been rewards. They've taken all of that stuff off the table, and they've just said, now you just do this anyway. That's why simping is dangerous, because you're never going to improve that dynamic if you're still willing to continue to bend over backwards, though you're not actually getting anything for it. Right? And I'm not even just talking about an individual themselves getting something for it. I'm saying you can look collectively and see collectively black men are not getting anything for being willing to be stepdads these days. Okay, that's the thing. So I would argue, yes, men have always been purpose oriented and have always been wanting to find something that was worth them dying for, worth them being passionate for, putting all of their energy into, being willing to live lesser for the sake of someone else to live better. They've always been looking for that. But in the past, there were actually examples where generally when men did that, it was actually ended up being positive for men collectively and for society. Not even just for men, for society. Now, cats are doing this stuff now, and stuff is going down. Look, we actually have an inverse relationship between simp behavior, how much simping, how much just being willing to just throw it all away for X, Y, and Z, and actually stuff getting worse. Stuff gets worse. Now, you give more, it gets worse. We've never been at a time like this in history. It's never been like this where you could actually be doing your best and for someone else, and it actually be worse. Society worse off. They would be better off if you did nothing. That's what I'm saying. It's crazy.
Crazy indeed, as we get another crazy super chat from Saray Rogers. Go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, thank you very much, Saray Rogers. It says, once in my position as a university student, government representative, a young, unattractive woman accused me of inappropriate behavior. And ever since that fake apology they gave me, reality became clear. Yeah. I'm sorry that happened to you, man. Look, man. See, this stuff, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. You would have been better off by not ever doing anything positive for that young lady or whatever at all. And that's where we're at. Society would have been better off. She would have probably been better off, because then she would have had to at least face her own issues, her own demons, and not try to find some kind of way to blame somebody else for it.
Now, shout out to Saray one more time. And if I move on here, shout out to Checking for You. You've been putting some good comments down in the chat. And you mentioned target audience and things of that nature. let me just speak for myself, and then I'll ask Kaizo the next question here as we start landing this plane. The time has gone by fairly quickly. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me, but the time seemed to have flown by fairly quickly here. Now, checking for you regarding target audiences and whatnot. You see, generally speaking, when it comes to discourse of any kind, of most kinds, I am 99% of the time looking towards action. And it may not be action in physical space, it may be a mental tool that I'm trying to create. It may be a tool for the mastery of my own subjective consciousness and so on and so forth. But generally, I'm looking in that direction. But when it comes to, let's say, a conversation like this, where I almost guarantee you that everyone in the panel already kind of knows what the beginning and the end of it is, right? It is not necessarily, reaching to reach some targeted audience that's going to change their minds or something like that, right? So that's how I would put it. Not every conversation is supposed to go out there and challenge the status quo. Trying to challenge the status quo is like trying to dam up the Nile, building it with sticks, like one of those animals that does that. I forgot what they do. So definitely agree with you in that regard. However, Mr. Kaizo, let's explicitly state this thing that I think that LAR kind of agreed to before. Are calls for protection simply a postmodern way to, shame and guilt useful idiots into falling in line? Are calls for, hey, be more emotionally available, be more? I'm sorry, did I
Yeah,
crank up or something?
I
Anyways, never
just
mind.
wanted to mention this
Uh,
here. This thumbs up, no placeholder,
oh yeah,
199 super sticker. Thank you very much for that. Okay, keep
oh
going.
yeah. He is not a placeholder. Yeah, I did see that one before. I forgot. But anyway, shout out to you. So basically, Kaizo, if you heard me, these calls for you need to become more emotionally available. You need to do this. You need to do that. Um, the way they strike me, the way they strike my feelings, right? Are this is somebody trying to manipulate me, right? Like it's just like, and I actively get angry and I don't pay attention to those things, right? So to the degree to which there's a whole kind of philosophical project behind it, right? There's this whole, by philosophical, I mean kind of a societal, sociological project behind, let's try to tell men that they need to become more of this or more of that. Is all this just a postmodern power play? The postmodernists already know that none of this shit makes sense, anyways. That's one cuss word for the stream. I don't think it'll strike you down, Dr. Thunder, right? Um,
Right.
but yeah, I stuck. Yeah. But Kaiser, what are your thoughts about that? Are these kinds of calls, protect, be more emotionally available, are these all just manipulation tactics, not actually looking for what they're asking for, but just a way to keep you on guard, keep you on your toes, use the fact that you actually want a purpose against you, just so that it can continue to lord things over you. And by the day, it doesn't necessarily just have to be women; it could be whomever. Might even be an unconscious collective entity that just, because we know social animals are great at manipulation, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be conscious, right? People who manipulate, typically the really good ones, don't even have to think about it. They're just out there like naturally just manipulating, naturally goalpost shifting, naturally saying crazy things like you have to be more emotional intelligence, I think, is the one, right? Kaiser, what are your thoughts? Do you have to
Yeah.
become more emotionally intelligent?
Yeah, so yeah, great question actually, and I want to answer some of the points you made. Right? Okay, yeah, they are just trying to control you, but not just for the sake of controlling you. I believe the postmodernists are working with the globalist, neo-capitalist agenda, right? And this agenda states that women are more productive in the economy than men because women spend more than men, right? Women have more spending power. So ultimately, you want to curtail, you want to simp to the gender or a group of people. Let's just say demographics. But women are a huge demographic. They're the ones who spend. They see nice shiny things, they want to buy it. Even when guys buy shiny things, it's mostly to impress other men or other women, but mostly it's to impress women somewhere down the line. So I think yeah, they want to control us so that we can participate in their plantation. And yeah, that's 100% true. Now let me see if I can add more context here though. If you look at this whole words like emotional intelligence, or it's not just about IQ. What they did is right. It's like they smuggled in Muhammad because we know what IQ is, or right, what IQ tries to portray intelligence. And intelligence, we know what that is. So this whole EQ stuff, first of all, they don't even portray what they state EQ is, which is just emotional maturity. What it does is they want you to simp for someone else's feelings and for you to put aside your own preferences for that other person's feeling. They don't tell the other person to do the same for you, and I think that's the difference. Men don't, by nature, as well as women, know how to manipulate people using feelings and emotions. So if you have a high emotional maturity according to them, or emotional intelligence, you would be more kind. You would instead of, let's say, valuing your work, which pays the rent, even though your wife is coming to your face while you're in the middle of work, you should somehow simp for that feeling, right? So they want you to simp for their emotional expressions. They will never simp for your emotional expressions, and that's part of the problem, right? Emotional intelligence is not even intelligent at all. It's really a new way to make you simp for the other, while the real thing they should be seeking emotional maturity, and of course they will never do that.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Dropping bombs, basically saying, "Hey, emotional intelligence. What they're to, the Steelman version of that is maturity, is wisdom, is knowing how to act in the world such that you take into account the possible reactions of different people, right? And then you act accordingly with regards to your goals. You maneuver around these people, and that's kind of what emotional intelligence would be. But basically, way it is sold is just, hey, just do what I want you to do, right? And as adult supervision says, it's not even it's an obvious tactic, is what adult supervision says, and I 100% agree. It is so obvious, these types of things. Now, I think that there are a lot of people, like maybe Dr. Thunder, myself, Kaizo, whatever, because of a personality trait, some of these things might come across very, very, very obvious to us. Whenever somebody is doing extroverted feeling, social cohesion, social norm stuff, I think we have a high sensitivity to it. That, hey, here comes that thing again where people are trying to get me to do something so that they
I
feel
mean, my
better. Oh, why you say
my girlfriend's trying to shame
why
me for
why,
not
why
watching anime, calling it cartoons and stuff. And she really probably thinks deep down I really care about her judging me for watching cartoons. I'm like, yeah, I'm still a child, and
there you go, those types of things. Like, now, yes, I'm particularly sensitive to it, but I do know, and the reason I'm bringing this up, because when adult supervision says it's obvious, and I was going down the it's obvious train, I realized, that's a slight mistake. There are people who fall for, again, the extroverted feeling. I use that shorthand term. I know it's not that, it's a little kind of inside term here, but there are people who fall for that all the time, that seek social harmony, and hence will be like, hey, maybe I should do a little bit more of what the group that I should do. Why do I want to be so different? Right? But let's get LAR's take on this. And I know that LAR, you already kind of agreed from the first question that, look, they're not really trying to get this protection from you. They're probably just trying to manipulate you. They're probably just trying to find another way to talk down on black men in some particular cases. But
Hey, real quick, I just wanted to
get the chance to answer again more explicitly. Is this all just... Go ahead.
Here, I just want to acknowledge the Cash App. MGS49 with the $5 Cash App, saying excellent show. Thank you very much.
There you go. Ecam wins. You can show Cash Apps, and you cannot. So, LAR, this intelligence, this you don't do, you asking something, or are they just asking you to put the chain around your neck so they don't even have to do that part, right? It's just like, why don't you just chain your for me? I don't even have you up, and you're just gonna be my little... What are your thoughts regarding that, Eliar?
I'm piecing that together. Give me 1 second because you broke up. Hold on. As far as putting a chain on the neck, it's kind of
Gotcha.
like...
So I broke up. I hope I'm back.
Yeah, you're okay. You're okay. He's
It's
answering.
okay. as far as the chain around the neck, sometimes I think it's more of a, what do they call it? It's not, they used to call it a honey-do list, but it's not a honey-do list. It's more of seeing if I can distract you, seeing if I can get you to do something that's not in your best interest. So what we're dealing with nowadays is desperation. The desperation of losing the guys doing the chivalrous things that we once did. So now it's like upping the ante of what will you do for me, and sometimes creating a dire circumstance to see if you can get some help. And with that, the guys are making a business decision. Like, I don't know you, and why would I help you in this situation? Like, why would I risk myself in this situation? And how do you, because the question comes, how did you even get yourself in this situation? And what you're seeing is, as Dr. Thunder brought up the slavery comment, you're seeing guys choose not to help because the situations are too far gone. Kind of like when you see two guys get into a fight and it's like, should I jump in that? No, they grown men, let them handle it. And now the women are getting treated with that same, I could just watch it. And ladies are saying, like, a real man would do this, and a real man would jump in, a real man would stop this. And it's kind of like, if you've lived long enough, you've known that, unfortunately, whatever you want to call toxic or traumatic or abusive, those are situations women run into and they run back to. So guys have seen it play out that, okay, she needs some help in this, but where is she going to be next week in that same situation? So guys are making business decisions of like, no, I'm not doing it. And in essence, taking the chain off of our necks, because there is no benefit to put ourselves in those positions. Even if we fix the situation, it won't end well. Wasn't it a few months ago a guy got killed in front of his newborn at a Walmart because he was helping a woman and he was with his wife at the time? You know, that lady's not going to help him, and that guy's going to do life, and that little kid is missing a father. So guys know this happens all too well. And I'll say this and I'll end with this. The cherry on top to this is, if you've ever known a police officer, they'll tell you that's the cause that they really despise. They don't like to go in a domestic violence situation because it's like, this is the situation that can go left. She could go back, it could get violent, she could get violent. You don't know which side is going to turn on you, even though they ask you for your help. They don't like that. Ironically, they respond to traffic stops worse than they do domestic violence because they'll pull a gun out on you for that. But for most of the cops I've talked to, those are the situations they hate because the woman is involved, so you can't just pull out your gun. But then the woman might get you shot, so it's ridiculous.
All right, here, let me.
Okay. I think Salty Ball.
Yeah. Let me acknowledge with the huge $50 super chat sponsoring the stream. Salty Ball says, "Do will thou willst is the mantra of the day. The ethos of thine hedonism reigns supreme. Amongst thine she heathen binds are honored in good faith, bona fide. Thine heathen seeks the shroud, the cloak, the veil of protection when
Peace,
making
Steve.
grown man choices." And a follow-up comment saying, "One Lizzo's worth of coinage to thine thunderous scholar." Thank you again. for that generous contribution.
Thank you indeed. So, Dr. Thunder, just a quick response on that, and I'm sure on the question on the table regarding the manipulation tactic. I think we can gather based on what you've said so far that you think it is a manipulation tactic, right from the first answer. But to what do you have to say about what everyone has said so far about be more emotionally available, be this, be that, and it's not actually being asked for because it's referring back to something from the past which has been rejected by the same people who are asking you to do this stuff, and just a way to keep you kind of razzle dazzled and controlled.
Yeah, you know, it is a control mechanism. Matter of fact, even the sort of conversations that we have in this space, where we're just questioning the status quo, just a questioning of the status quo, just to saying, okay, let's compare apples to apples or oranges to oranges. Let's look at some demographic numbers. Even those kind of conversations where the goal is not necessarily to, upset the apple cart, as it were. It is just to say, let's just look at this and let's just be realistic about what actually is. Okay? They don't want you to have those conversations because it's better for you to remain fooled by what's going on, because what it seems to do is although you weren't their first choice or their second or third choice, maybe not even their fourth choice, but after they've had fun and they've done what they wanted to do, it's a good thing for them to be able to have a backup plan. Someone that will still be there, still waiting, still being willing to die for you and to rescue you from your bad choices, and one that is willing to take in your 5 kids by 6 baby daddies. Someone that is still willing to take that on is a positive thing, because it means that they can go for the gusto. They can fully actualize and be as liberated as possible. And there doesn't seem to be any consequence for that, right? And so this is when Ramil says, hoes are winning. This is what he's talking about. Now, I disagree that this is a positive state of affairs long term, because as they get older, they age out of the ability to still be able to extract resources, though they have racked up their body count sky high. And again, I'm not talking about all. We're not talking about all women. There's not even a way for me to talk about that. But we certainly are talking about the ones that are making it known that they are this way. And I would argue the ones that either condone that behavior either tacitly or will outright defend their right to be as wild as they want to be. And that's something that has never been like that in the history of the world, really. It's the one time when it was okay to publicize that you are a 304, that you're ratchet, that you're proud of it, and simultaneously be be complaining that men are not willing to protect you, simultaneously complaining that men that are finding out that you are of low moral standard, that you have low moral character, they are no longer willing to wait for you until you have gotten it all out of your system. So it's not just that they're going for the gusto, is that they still think that you should take the deal. That's a problem. And why would anyone be willing to line up for that deal? And shouldn't men require at least a certain moral standard from who it is that they decide to enter in an agreement where they're saying that they would be willing to die for you, willing to provide for you, willing to support you? Shouldn't they be able to decide what caliber of woman we're talking about? So it's not that good women don't exist, because they certainly do. It's that the ones that are not so good are being celebrated, and that you're supposed to still take the deal no matter how bad they are, because your value is zero.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we approach the close, as we approach final thoughts, much appreciated. Again, those super chatters, Salty Balls, Don McKee, and the rest of them. Okay. And as we give these final thoughts, you guys can give your final super chats. Put your final thoughts in the super chats, super sticker, $1, $2, $10, $100, don't matter. We're talking about rights and responsibilities. We're talking about, in theory and in practice, what the social contract is. We started out talking about the fact that traditional contracts are not explicitly stated. And there's a philosophical notion that when you start talking about things like the social contract, you can be sure that the social contract is dead or is about to die, right? And that any words about social contract become a weapon to use in a postmodern power play. The postmodern power play that Dr. Thunder just finished describing, the postmodern power play that gives you carte blanche and leeway to be as wild, go for gusto, I believe you said, right? We talk about different parties that are involved. We talk about the individual versus the group. The individual versus the group. What does the individual owe to society? How does that play out in modern times? Man versus family and vice versa. Okay, and the different roles as well. Role versus role, man versus woman, and all these other types of things. Okay, and now we're gonna start landing the plane with some final thoughts, starting with Kaizo, Kaizo, LAR, Dr. Thunder. You can close us out. So give us your final thoughts on everything that has been said so far. Perhaps some pointers regarding, well, what is to be done, what are some solutions, and whatnot. Go ahead, Kaizo.
Yeah, so in terms of solutions, it's simple. Either get rich uh, or move to Africa or another place where you want. If you prefer them light-skinned women, go to Brazil. But I'll recommend, if you still like that, come to East Africa, come to Ethiopia and still get the best of what you want. I don't think that the social contract will get rewritten until something crazy happens to the American system of governance. So ultimately, that's the only solution I can think of. But we're not going to put women back in the kitchen. That is misogynistic and it's wrong. Women deserve freedom just like us, and we deserve peace leave that won't challenge us as well. Just get the money and move to where you want. Shout out, and yeah, that's really it from my end.
All right. LAR, what are your final thoughts. How are these men out there going to get the peace leave, the non-challenging peace leave that Kaiser referred to? What's your final thoughts, Eliar? Oh, super chat.
Well, okay.
Yeah, let me
I thought
mention
you
the
was gonna
super
do
chat
it.
first. Again, Saul T. Balls with another big super chat, $10 super chat saying they want private protection but have low value attributes. Anything high value is worth private protection and investment. So no private police. They are neglected to the local 911 for public help. Yeah.
As far as a solution, this is gonna sound messed up, but the solution is to leave environments alone that you have to put yourself at risk. And when you're in a different environment, you're gonna be typically with a different type of person who won't put themselves in that type of situation. So that's where you meet people. That's an easy solution for that. The other thing is that's about to sound messed up, but you gotta do it. Stop following and block everybody that you know always gets into stuff. Make yourself unaccessible and unavailable. Because all you're gonna do is get opened up to a whole conversation about why you didn't do something. And when somebody call you, look, man, I changed my number. I don't talk to you no more. I'm not in all your drama. That's it. Keep it simple. If you, and stop lying to yourself and saying that you want peace, but you always hovering around problematic situations. If you do that, you get what you get. So that's it.
So that's it. Dr. Thunder, you got the floor, you got the mic. Go ahead, take us out, sir.
Yeah, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to go back through the super chats, just telling folks thank you very much. So Don McKee, again, with the $5 super chat, then Gregory Scotland with some super chats here. Thank you very much for those. Then Sir Ray Rogers, and of course our sponsor today, Salty Balls, and then another $10 super chat. And then of course I need to mention the Cash App. Thank you for that sandwich money. Saying excellent show. Thank you for that. And make sure y'all like the video, like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos. Support Black Male Media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the replay gang. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. And if you'd like to buy me a sandwich, you can still hit that Cash App because that, I like that sandwich money. Sandwich spelled, 2 M's. Sandwich money. And then as I'm talking, another super chat coming out right here. Thank you very much for that. Don McKee again saying next show topic, if they don't cook, then how are men supposed to eat? Oh, goodness. Thank you very much for that. All right. Here's the thing about this. And I don't want to make it seem as though I think that women are all heathens or something. I do not think that. Okay? Any more than I think that men are all heathens. And just as look at this, man. Y'all are in here. Y'all are in here with the support today. Y'all are in here with the support today. Thank you very much for the support. Goodness gracious. I no longer pay to play. My support come without a price. Lunch on me, bro. Lunch on you, indeed. That's going to be a good lunch. That's a lot of sandwiches. That's a lot of sandwiches. I might spread that out to 2 or 3 lunches. That's sandwich money. Thank you very much for that. But as I was saying, this is not for me. I'm not saying that I'm not even saying that the average is bad, is of low quality. I'm saying the publicized version, what's being celebrated, and then what it is that we're expected, what our responses is supposed to be based on, what folks are saying. And it's as if we have no value at all, that we're of such low value that they think they can require that we continue to provide protection for folks that hate our guts. Frankly, folks that didn't choose you, didn't want to, give you a shot, but then they also expect you to be the ones that are willing to die for them. And I think that is morally reprehensible. I think it is despicable. Right? And we deserve more than that. And just for the fact of us even being willing to say that we deserve more. Salty Balls with another $10 super chat. Thank you. Even for us being willing to say that we deserve more, or even to just ask questions about the state of affairs, that's a problem. Like how dare us even be willing to have discussion on these topics? That's where I get upset. Let's put it that way. Is we're not even allowed to have the conversation. Look, the Bible says that for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's all. That's not just men. That's women too. See, the problem is we are willing to point the finger at the men and say, you dusty ninjas. But if we say anything at all comparable on the other side of that equation, that's a problem. And that's got to change. Man, y'all are going crazy up in here. Another $10 super chat. Man, I can't even end the show. Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite. Dr. Wallace had to run a few errands for my girl, her job, and alma mater. Would definitely want to contribute on your next case close. Sure, man. I'll get you a link. We'll invite you. But again, here's a case of a guy doing a few errands for his girl. But I thought that black men were dusty and didn't do nothing for nobody. Whatever. Anyhow, that's our time. Come back next week. It'll be on Ike's channel, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The best, the best conversation, the deepest, the highest level conversation on the most relevant topics in this space. That's our time. Y'all be well. Peace.